Raven Sullivan had always thought space would be darker. Even after 3 years of working at the Lunar Gateway Station, the perpetual starlight still surprised him. He focused on the maintenance panel before him, trying to ignore the emptiness that stretched endlessly in every direction. The anniversary always made working in space harder. Panel 247, B diagnostic complete. No anomalies detected, he reported into his comm system, his voice steadier than he felt. The words echoed in his helmet, a reminder of his solitude. "Copy that, Sullivan," came the response from Mission Control. "One more panel and you can head back in." Raven checked his oxygen levels, still good for another 2 hours. He began maneuvering toward the final panel when something caught his eye. At first, he thought it was just solar glare on his visor, a common enough occurrence during EVAs. But this light moved differently. It rippled like the aurora borealis, but with colors he had never seen before, colors that shouldn't exist in the vacuum of space. "Control, are you seeing this?" He adjusted his helmet camera to focus on the phenomenon. Static answered him. The light pattern grew larger, approaching his position with deliberate movement. Raven's training told him to retreat, to get back to the airlock immediately. But something else, something deeper, kept him in place. The colors began to take shape, forming what appeared to be a vaguely humanoid figure composed entirely of shifting, prismatic light. As it drew closer, Raven realized he could feel something, emotions that weren't his own washing over him in waves. Each color pulse brought a different sensation. A deep blue brought crushing sorrow, while a shimmering gold carried wonder and curiosity. "I am Oriana," a voice resonated directly in his mind, accompanied by a gentle violet ripple through the being's form. "Your grief," it called to me. Raven's breath caught in his throat. Today marked exactly 5 years since the accident that took his daughter Lily. He had chosen to work this shift specifically to keep busy, to stay distracted. "How can you know about that?" The being, Oriana, shifted closer, her form rippling with a soft rose color that somehow conveyed empathy. "My species experiences emotions as wavelengths of light. Your grief, it shines like a beacon across the void. So few species feel with such intensity." "I try not to," Raven admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "Feeling anything at all today, it's too much." Oriana's form swirled with that deep blue again, but this time it was threaded with glints of silver. "The depth of your pain speaks to the depth of your love. My people, we are losing this capacity. Our colors fade with each generation." A warning light flashed in Raven's helmet, his heart rate was elevated beyond normal parameters. He forced himself to take slow, deep breaths. "Why are you here? Really?" The being's colors shifted through several patterns before settling into a gentle gradient of coral and gold. "Because you humans feel everything so completely, so purely. Even your grief has layers we had forgotten could exist. I've been observing your station for some time, trying to understand." "That must be disappointing," Raven said with a bitter laugh. "All that research just to find someone broken by their feelings." Oriana pulsed with a sudden burst of bright emerald that made Raven gasp. It carried a sensation of fierce disagreement. "You misunderstand. It is not despite your brokenness that I'm here, but because of it. My people have sought perfection in emotional control for so long that we've lost the ability to truly feel at all. But you continue to feel, to love, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts." The maintenance panel behind Raven beeped, reminding him of his duties, of reality. "I should report this. First contact protocols would have us meet in sterile rooms." Through layers of bureaucracy and fear, Oriana interrupted, her form flickering with orange uncertainty. "I chose this moment, this day, because your grief showed me your capacity for truth. Will you speak with me, Raven Sullivan? Not as representatives of our species, but as two beings who understand loss." Raven thought of Lily, of her fascination with rainbows and her belief that colors had feelings. She would have loved this moment. The thought didn't hurt as much as it usually did. "Control's going to notice something's wrong soon," he said, but made no move to leave. "How can we even communicate properly? I can't exactly produce colors like you do." Oriana's form brightened with what felt like amusement. "But you do, in your own way. Your emotions create ripples in spacetime itself, tiny fluctuations in quantum fields that my people can perceive. Even now, you're glowing with a mixture of fear, wonder, and hope." Hope? Raven hadn't felt hope in so long he wasn't sure he'd recognize it. But there was something stirring in his chest, something that had been dormant since Lily's death. "I suppose I am curious about your people. About why you can sense emotions this way." The being's colors shifted into a complex pattern that reminded Raven of a double helix. "My people evolved in a dimension where light and consciousness are intertwined. We experience reality as a continuous exchange of emotional energy. But over millennia of technological advancement, we began to see emotions as inefficient, primitive. We developed ways to dampen our color spectrum, to control our emotional radiation. Now, we're finding that we may have dampened them too well." A notification flashed in Raven's HUD. Mission Control was requesting a status update. He needed to make a decision. "I have to respond to them," he said. "But, will you stay? There's so much more I want to ask, to understand." Oriana's form pulsed with a warm golden light that felt like a smile. "I will remain. But Raven, you should know, interaction between our species is forbidden by my people. They believe human emotions are too volatile, too dangerous to our carefully maintained equilibrium." "Then why risk it?" The being's colors swirled into a deep purple shot through with silver, a combination that conveyed both determination and vulnerability. "Because in all our observations of humanity, we've never encountered anything quite like your grief for Lily. It's not just pain, it's love that refuses to die. My people have forgotten that emotions aren't meant to be controlled, but transformed. Perhaps we could help each other remember how to feel completely." Raven touched his hand to his helmet where a tear had floated free, freezing instantly on the inside of his visor. "Lily used to say that rainbows were just the sky's way of showing its feelings. I always told her that wasn't scientific, but maybe she understood something I didn't." "Children often do," Oriana agreed, her form shimmering with a gentle rose gold that felt like tender remembrance. "They haven't yet learned to doubt their connection to the universe." The maintenance panel beeped again, more insistently this time. Raven knew he had to respond, had to return to his duties and the normal flow of life on the station. But something had shifted inside him, as if Oriana's prismatic presence had awakened colors in his own emotional spectrum that he'd forgotten existed. "I'll tell them the communications glitch was temporary," he decided. "That everything is nominal. Can you meet me here again? There's an observation module on the far side of the station. It's usually empty during the night shift." Oriana's form brightened with what felt like joy, sending ripples of golden light across the surrounding space. "The risk is significant. But perhaps that's what both our species need, to remember that the most meaningful connections often require us to risk everything we think we know." As Raven began his return to the airlock, he felt lighter than he had in years. The void of space no longer seemed empty, it was filled with possibilities he had never imagined. And for the first time since losing Lily, the anniversary of her death held something more than just pain, it held the promise of new understanding, of colors yet to be discovered in the spectrum of human experience. Oriana's parting words echoed in his mind, accompanied by a rainbow of emotions he was only beginning to understand. "Until tonight, Raven Sullivan. May your grief continue to shine like a beacon of truth across the stars." The observation module felt different at night. During normal shifts, it buzzed with activity as researchers and engineers monitored various experiments. But in these quiet hours, with only the emergency lights casting a soft glow, Raven could almost pretend he was alone in the universe. Almost. Your wavelengths are more settled tonight, Oriana's voice resonated in his mind as her prismatic form materialized near the module's curved window. The space around her rippled with gentle amber tones that conveyed a sense of comfort. Raven smiled, noting how he was already beginning to associate certain colors with specific emotions. I've been thinking about what you said about your people losing their ability to feel. How does that even happen? Oriana's form shifted through several shades before settling into a contemplative blue-violet. Imagine teaching a child that fire burns. You want them to be careful, to avoid pain. But what if, over generations, that teaching became so ingrained that people forgot fire could also warm, could cook food, could bring light to darkness? My people did something similar with emotions. You tried to protect yourselves from pain, Raven said, understanding all too well the impulse. We did more than try, Oriana's colors darkened. We succeeded. Through genetic modification and technological intervention, we learned to control our emotional spectrum completely. Parents could choose which feelings their children would be capable of experiencing. Most chose practical emotions, focus, determination, logical satisfaction. Few saw the value in preserving what they saw as primitive responses like grief, passion, or deep joy. Raven thought of Lily again, of how purely she had experienced every emotion. But those primitive feelings, they're what make life worth living. Yes, Oriana pulsed with a brilliant gold that filled the module. That's what we're finally beginning to understand. But it may be too late. The modifications have become hereditary. Each generation is born with a more limited emotional spectrum than the last. Some of our children never experience color at all. Is that why you're really here? Raven asked. To study how humans feel? Oriana's form rippled with complicated patterns of silver and deep purple. Partially. But there's more. My people, we've detected a concerning pattern. The emotional dampening is accelerating. Within a few generations, we may lose the ability to feel anything at all. We'll become purely logical beings, disconnected from the very light that gave us consciousness. But you're different, Raven observed. You can still feel deeply enough to risk coming here, to connect with a stranger's grief. I am what my people call a spectrum preserver, she explained, her colors shifting to a determined emerald. We are a small group who chose to reject the modifications, to maintain our full emotional range despite the social consequences. We believe that emotions aren't just responses to experience, they are the foundation of consciousness itself. Raven leaned forward, intrigued. What do you mean? Your quantum physicists are beginning to understand it. Consciousness affects reality at its most fundamental level. Emotions aren't just chemical reactions in a brain, they're fluctuations in the fabric of spacetime itself. When you feel deeply, you literally change the universe around you. As if to demonstrate, Oriana's form expanded, her colors reaching out to touch the walls of the module. Where they made contact, Raven could see tiny ripples in what had appeared to be solid metal, as if reality itself was responding to her presence. That's incredible, he breathed, fighting the urge to reach out and touch the ripples. But why would your people want to give up something so fundamental? Fear, Oriana's colors darkened to a deep indigo. Fear of loss, of pain, of the chaos that emotions can bring. We achieved incredible technological advancement by prioritizing logic over feeling. But now... She paused, her form flickering with uncertainty. Now what? Now we're discovering that without emotional resonance, we're losing our ability to innovate, to create, to find new solutions to problems. Our technology has plateaued. Our art has become mathematical exercises without meaning. Even our ability to travel between dimensions is beginning to fail, as if the universe itself is responding to our lack of emotional connection. Raven thought about this, about the irony of a species so advanced they could control their very capacity for feeling, yet finding themselves trapped by that same control. So what's the solution? Oriana's form brightened with a mix of hope and apprehension, creating a stunning interplay of gold and silver light. We believe humans might hold the key. Your species feels emotions more intensely than any we've encountered, yet you've managed to channel those feelings into creation rather than destruction. At least, sometimes. Sometimes is right, Raven laughed softly. We're hardly a model of emotional stability. But that's exactly what makes you unique, Oriana insisted, her colors intensifying. You feel everything, joy, grief, love, anger, and you survive it. You transform it into art, music, scientific discovery. You let your emotions guide you without letting them control you. We need to understand how. Raven was quiet for a moment, watching the stars through the module's window. After I lost Lily, I wanted to stop feeling altogether. I would have given anything for the kind of emotional control your people have. But now. He touched the window, tracing the pattern of a particularly bright star. Now I think maybe the pain kept me human. Kept me connected to her, to myself, to everything that matters. Oriana moved closer, her form casting rainbow patterns across Raven's face. Will you help us, Raven? Will you let me study your emotional patterns, try to understand how humans maintain this balance? What would that involve? I can create a quantum resonance field between us, allowing me to experience your emotions directly, to understand how they flow and change. But her colors flickered with concern. It would mean letting me feel everything you feel, including your grief for Lily. And there would be risks. If my people discover I'm doing this, the consequences would be severe. For both of us. Raven thought about Lily again, about how she would have approached this situation. She had always loved the idea of aliens, had dreamed of first contact being a moment of joy and discovery rather than fear and suspicion. Maybe this was his chance to honor that dream. I'll help, he said finally. But I have conditions. First, I need to understand everything you learn. If humans hold the key to saving your people's emotional capacity, we should know about it. Second. He hesitated, then continued, I want to understand your emotions too. If we're going to do this, it should be an exchange, not just an experiment. Oriana's form erupted in a display of colors so complex and beautiful that Raven felt tears forming in his eyes. You continue to surprise me, Raven Sullivan. Such openness, such willingness to connect, it's exactly what my people have forgotten how to do. Is that a yes? It is, she responded, her colors settling into a warm, steady glow. But you should know, once we create this connection, it cannot be easily broken. You will likely experience emotions you've never felt before, in ways you cannot predict. Are you truly ready for that? Raven thought of the past 5 years, of the emotional walls he'd built around himself after Lily's death. Maybe it was time to let those walls come down, to feel something new, something different. Something that might help not just himself, but an entire species remember how to feel. I'm ready, he said, and meant it. When do we begin? Oriana's form pulsed with a color Raven had never seen before, one that seemed to exist somewhere between hope and possibility. We already have. The quantum resonance field manifested as a subtle aurora around them, turning the observation module into a cathedral of living light. Raven sat cross-legged on the floor, watching as his own emotions painted the air around him in colors he'd never imagined existed. That's determination, Oriana explained as a streak of copper spiraled between them. But see how it bleeds into something darker at the edges? That's your fear of failure. I can feel yours too, Raven realized, surprised by the alien sensations flowing through him. It's like tasting a color, if that makes any sense. Your emotions feel more geometric than mine. Oriana's form pulsed with appreciation. That's a remarkably accurate description. My people experience emotions as mathematical patterns. Yours are more fluid, organic. It's fascinating how differently our species process the same fundamental forces. They had been meeting like this for weeks now, spending the quiet night shifts exploring the intersection of their emotional spectrums. Each session revealed new insights about both species' capacity for feeling. "There's something I don't understand," Raven said, watching a particularly complex pattern form between them. "If emotions are really just quantum fluctuations, why can't your people simply replicate them technologically? Why do they need to study humans at all?" Oriana's form shifted to a contemplative shade of indigo. "We tried. For centuries, we attempted to artificially generate emotional resonance. But it's like trying to create life from only its chemical components, something essential is missing." "The spark," Raven murmured, thinking of Lily's favorite fairy tale about a wooden puppet becoming real. "The thing that turns existence into experience." "Exactly. We've discovered that emotions aren't just patterns of energy, they're connections to the fundamental consciousness of the universe itself. When your daughter died, your grief didn't just change your brain chemistry. It created ripples in spacetime that still exist, that drew me to you across dimensional boundaries." Raven felt a familiar ache in his chest, but now it was accompanied by a new sensation, a shimmer of golden understanding that he recognized as Oriana's empathy. "Is that why you chose me? Because my grief was so loud?" "Partly," Oriana admitted, her colors swirling with complexity. "But there was something else, something unique about your emotional signature. Most humans who experience profound loss either shut down their feelings entirely or become consumed by them. You found a third path, you learned to carry your grief like a torch, letting it illuminate rather than burn." As if in response to her words, the quantum field between them shifted, revealing patterns that looked remarkably like DNA helixes made of light. "What's happening?" Raven asked, fascinated. "Your memories are interfacing with the field," Oriana explained, her form brightening with excitement. "This is unprecedented. I'm seeing how your emotional experiences have literally modified your quantum structure over time. Each significant feeling has left its mark, creating a kind of emotional genome." Raven watched as more patterns emerged, complex geometries of light that somehow represented every major emotional event in his life. "Is this what your people lost? This ability to be changed by what we feel?" "Yes," Oriana's colors darkened with sadness. "In our quest for emotional control, we eliminated our capacity for emotional evolution. We can still process feelings as data, but we can't integrate them into our being. We can't grow from them." "But you're different," Raven observed. "You can feel everything I'm feeling right now. You're changing too." Oriana's form flickered with uncertainty. "Yes, and that's what terrifies my people. They believe this kind of emotional resonance is a form of contamination. That it will destroy the careful balance we've maintained for millennia." "Is it destroying you?" "No," she pulsed with a certainty that filled the room with golden light. "It's awakening parts of me I didn't know existed. Each session with you teaches me new ways of feeling, new colors in the emotional spectrum. But..." Her form dimmed slightly. "It's also making it harder for me to maintain the emotional dampeners my people require. I'm becoming too human." Raven felt a surge of protectiveness that manifested as a shield of deep blue light around them both. "Is that dangerous for you?" "Extremely. The Council of Resonance monitors all emotional anomalies. If they detect these changes in my pattern..." She didn't need to finish the thought. The quantum field between them carried her fear clearly enough. "Then we'll find a way to hide them," Raven said firmly. "There must be a way to..." He stopped as a new pattern emerged in the field between them, something neither had seen before. It looked like a fusion of human DNA and the geometric patterns of Oriana's people, but it pulsed with its own unique energy. That's impossible, Oriana whispered, her form flickering rapidly through shades of astonishment. The patterns, they're synchronizing. Your emotional genome is somehow catalyzing changes in my quantum structure, creating something entirely new. Raven watched in awe as the pattern grew more complex, more beautiful. Is this what your people are afraid of? That contact with human emotions might force them to evolve? Not just evolve, Oriana's colors shifted to a shade Raven had never seen before, one that somehow conveyed both wonder and terror. This is suggesting that prolonged emotional resonance between our species could create an entirely new form of consciousness. One that combines human emotional depth with our quantum awareness. The implications hit Raven like a physical force. Your people would see this as a threat to their very existence. And yours would likely see it as a threat to human autonomy, Oriana added, her form rippling with concern. We've discovered something revolutionary, Raven. Something that could either heal both our species or tear them apart. The quantum field around them pulsed with the weight of this revelation, their combined emotions creating patterns of impossible complexity. In that moment, Raven understood that their private sessions had become something far more significant than either had imagined. They weren't just studying emotions anymore, they were witnessing the birth of a new way of being, one that challenged everything both their species believed about consciousness itself. What do we do now? He asked, watching as their emotional patterns continued to weave together in the space between them. Oriana's form shifted to that color beyond colors, the one that existed somewhere between hope and possibility. We keep going. Whatever the risks, whatever the consequences, we have to understand what this means. Because if we're right, if emotional resonance can create new forms of consciousness, then maybe that's the key to saving both our species from their self-imposed limitations. The quantum field pulsed one final time, leaving them both with a profound sense of standing on the edge of something vast and unknown. Their private experiment had become something much more, a potential revolution in the very nature of feeling and being. And as the station's night cycle began to fade into artificial dawn, they both knew there would be no turning back from what they had discovered. Warning lights flashed across the observation module as Raven rushed inside, his heart pounding. Something's wrong with the station's systems. All the quantum sensors are going haywire. Oriana's form materialized instantly, her colors a turbulent storm of warning reds and anxious purples. They're here. The Council has detected our resonance signatures. A low vibration rumbled through the station structure, making the reinforced windows creak. Through them, Raven could see what looked like tears in the fabric of space itself, geometric portals of pure light that definitely weren't part of normal space phenomena. Your people? He asked, already knowing the answer. The Resonance Guard, Oriana confirmed, her form flickering with distress. They're designed to be emotionless, perfect enforcers of the Council's will. I had hoped we'd have more time before they detected the changes in my quantum signature. The station's emergency systems blared to life. Unknown energy signatures detected. All personnel report to emergency stations. This is not a drill. They'll shut down the station's systems, Oriana explained rapidly, her colors shifting faster than Raven had ever seen. They'll say it's contaminated with dangerous emotional resonance. Your people will blame an unknown technical malfunction, write it off as another space mystery. Everyone goes back to their separate worlds, their separate limitations. Raven felt a surge of defiance that manifested as crimson sparks in the quantum field that now permanently surrounded him. I won't let that happen. What we've discovered here, it's too important. You don't understand, Oriana's form pulsed with desperate urgency. The Guard doesn't just enforce isolation, they erase all evidence of contact. They'll wipe both our memories of these interactions. Everything we've learned, everything we've felt, it will all disappear. The vibrations intensified. Through the window, Raven could see more portals opening, each one a perfect geometric shape that somehow hurt his eyes to look at directly. Inside his mind, he felt a cold pressure beginning to build, like emotional static trying to drown out his thoughts. "They're already starting," Oriana warned, her form becoming more transparent as she fought against the dampening field. "The quantum erasure process." "No." Raven's shout carried more than just sound. The quantum field around him flared with an intensity that made the guard's portals flicker. In that moment, he felt everything: his love for Lily, his grief at her loss, his growing connection with Oriana, and something else, something new that had been building between them. The cold pressure in his mind increased, trying to freeze his emotions into static patterns. But Raven had spent 5 years learning to carry his grief without letting it destroy him. He knew how to feel without breaking. "Remember what we learned," he called to Oriana, whose form was becoming increasingly unstable. "Emotions aren't just responses, they're fundamental forces. They can change reality itself." Through their resonance link, he pushed every feeling he could muster, not fighting against the guard's emotional dampeners, but flowing through them, transforming them with the pure intensity of human emotion. The quantum field between them erupted with impossible colors as their combined emotional energy created something the guard systems had never encountered, a hybrid consciousness that existed in the space between species, between dimensions, between thought and feeling. "Warning," the station's computer announced. "Unknown quantum cascade detected. Containment protocols failing." Through the windows, Raven could see the guard's portals beginning to distort, their perfect geometric shapes twisting as they encountered emotional patterns they couldn't process. But the victory was short-lived. "The station can't handle this level of quantum disruption," Oriana's voice was barely a whisper now. "If we continue, we'll tear it apart," Raven finished, understanding the choice before them. "But if we stop, everything goes back to the way it was. Both our species remain trapped in their limitations. Alone." The cold pressure reached a crescendo, threatening to freeze every emotion, every memory of their time together. Raven felt tears freezing on his cheeks as the temperature in the module plummeted. "There has to be another way," he insisted, fighting to maintain their connection as reality itself seemed to waver around them. "Everything you've taught me about emotional resonance, about quantum consciousness." And then he understood. The solution had been there all along, hidden in the very thing that had brought them together. "Oriana," he called through their fading link. "Do you trust me?" Her form stabilized briefly, pulsing with a color that needed no translation. "Trust, absolute and complete." Raven closed his eyes and did something that went against every human instinct for emotional self-preservation. He stopped fighting the guard's dampening field. Instead, he opened himself completely to it, letting the cold enter his mind, his heart, his very being. But instead of letting it freeze his emotions, he let them transform the cold itself. Every memory of Lily, every moment of joy and pain, every new feeling he'd discovered with Oriana, he offered them all up to the quantum field, not as weapons or shields, but as gifts. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The guard's portals began absorbing the emotional energy, their perfect geometric patterns fracturing as they encountered feelings they couldn't categorize or control. But instead of destroying them, the emotions began to change them, creating new patterns that combined the mathematical precision of Oriana's people with the organic chaos of human feeling. Through their resonance link, Raven felt Oriana understanding his strategy. She joined him, adding her own emotional energy to the field, not fighting against her people's technology, but showing it a new way to exist. The cold pressure transformed into something else, something neither human nor alien, but a bridge between both. The quantum field around them stabilized into a new configuration, one that maintained the station's integrity while allowing their emotional connection to continue existing. As the emergency lights faded and the station's systems began returning to normal, Raven opened his eyes to find Oriana's form had changed. She still shifted through colors, but now they moved with a new kind of harmony, a perfect balance between control and chaos. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. I remembered what you said about emotional evolution, Raven explained, watching as the last of the guard's portals transformed into something new. We couldn't fight their need for control, but we could show them a different kind of order. One that grows from feeling rather than suppressing it. Through the module's windows, they could see the guard's portals had become something else, quantum bridges that maintained connection while allowing for difference, for change, for growth. The Council will not be pleased, Oriana noted, but her colors showed more fascination than fear. No, Raven agreed. But they can't deny what's happening. We've shown them a third path, not emotional chaos or perfect control, but a way to feel deeply while maintaining harmony. As the station settled into its new quantum state, they both knew that everything had changed. They had created something unprecedented, a way for both species to evolve together, each learning from the other's strengths rather than fearing their differences. The price of iridescence, it turned out, wasn't the loss of control or the surrender to chaos. It was the courage to feel deeply enough to change reality itself. 6 months after the Quantum Bridge incident, the Lunar Gateway Station had become something unprecedented in human history, an interdimensional embassy where emotions were both diplomatic currency and scientific frontier. The observation module where Raven and Oriana first connected was now a dedicated resonance chamber, its walls lined with crystalline structures that helped stabilize the quantum field between dimensions. Raven stood at the familiar window, watching Earth rotate below while a delegation of Oriana's people manifested around him. Their forms were different now, still geometric, still precise, but with organic elements that flowed and shifted like aurora. The Council had been forced to adapt after their enforcers returned changed by human emotions. The hybrid resonance patterns are stable, Oriana reported, her form a symphony of satisfied blues and greens. She had become the lead researcher for what both species now called the chromatic protocol, the controlled sharing of emotional resonance between humans and her people. More than stable, added First Resonator Thale, one of the former guard who had been transformed during the confrontation. His once rigid geometric form now rippled with subtle color variations. They're evolving. Each successful binding creates new emotional frequencies we never knew existed. Raven nodded, feeling the truth of it in the quantum field that now permanently surrounded him. He was one of 12 humans chosen as resonance partners, their minds and hearts carefully prepared to handle the intensity of alien emotions while sharing their own. Show them, Oriana encouraged, her colors brightening with anticipation. Raven closed his eyes and reached for the grief that had once defined him. It was still there, but transformed. In the quantum field, it manifested as a complex pattern of light, his love for Lily interwoven with strands of alien mathematics, creating something entirely new. Remarkable, Thale observed. The human capacity to transmute emotion continues to exceed our models. This is why the protocol works. You don't just feel emotions, you transform them. We're learning from you too, Raven reminded them. Your understanding of quantum consciousness has revolutionized human psychology. The suicide rate among resonance partners has dropped to 0. When you can literally see your emotions as energy patterns, it changes how you handle them. Through the window, a new quantum bridge flickered into existence, no longer the harsh geometric portals of the guard, but elegant spirals of light that connected dimensions without disrupting them. A group of human scientists emerged, their bodies surrounded by faint auras that marked them as resonance-trained. The next phase begins today, Oriana announced, her colors shifting to formal patterns. Are you ready? Raven touched the pendant at his neck, a crystalline structure housing a quantum signature that was neither human nor alien, but something new. Inside it, a piece of Lily's favorite rainbow-making crystal was suspended in alien mathematics, eternal and evolving. I'm ready, he said, and felt the truth of it in every quantum particle of his being. The resonance chamber hummed to life as both species gathered in a circle. They had discovered that group resonance could create effects far beyond what any individual connection could achieve. Today, they would attempt something unprecedented, a controlled emotional cascade designed to awaken dormant feelings in an entire generation of Oriana's people. As the quantum field intensified, Raven felt Oriana's consciousness brush against his. Their connection had deepened over the months, becoming something that transcended both human and alien definitions of relationship. They were partners in the purest sense, two beings whose shared purpose had created something greater than themselves. "Remember," she whispered in his mind, her colors wrapping around him like an embrace, "the goal isn't to make them feel like humans. Or to make humans feel like your people," Raven completed the thought. "It's to help both species feel more completely, in their own way." The crystalline structures pulsed with accumulated emotional energy as more humans and aliens joined the circle. Each brought their own unique resonance pattern: grief, joy, wonder, determination, all weaving together into a quantum tapestry of unprecedented complexity. Raven thought of Lily, of how she would have loved this moment. In the quantum field, his memory of her became a catalyst, triggering a cascade of emotional awakening that rippled through dimensions. He felt Oriana's people responding, their rigid patterns softening just enough to allow new forms of feeling while maintaining their essential nature. Through their shared consciousness, Raven glimpsed the future they were creating, not a merging of species, but a harmony of differences. Humans would retain their emotional intensity while gaining the ability to see and shape their feelings as energy. Oriana's people would maintain their quantum awareness while rediscovering the value of organic, uncontrolled emotion. As the resonance peaked, Raven saw something that took his breath away. In the quantum field, Lily's memory had taken on a new form, a pattern of light that combined human love with alien mathematics to create something eternal. She lived on, not just in his heart, but in the very fabric of spacetime, her legacy helping two species remember how to feel. "Look," Oriana called to the others, her form blazing with joy. "The spectrum is expanding." Indeed, the quantum field had begun generating colors that neither species had ever seen before, colors that existed in the spaces between emotions, in the harmony of difference itself. They were witnessing the birth of new ways of feeling, of being, of existing in a universe that was far more intricate and interconnected than either species had imagined. Raven smiled, feeling tears that were no longer just expressions of grief, but of something far more complex and beautiful. He and Oriana had discovered that love, like light, knew no dimensional boundaries. It could transform grief into growth, separation into connection, endings into beginnings. Beyond the visible spectrum lay infinite possibilities for feeling, for understanding, for evolution. And in the space between human hearts and alien mathematics, in the quantum dance of emotion and energy, they had found something profound, the truth that consciousness itself was an endless rainbow, waiting to be explored. In the end, it wasn't about choosing between chaos and control, between feeling and understanding. It was about finding the courage to exist in the spaces between, where love could rewrite the laws of physics, and grief could birth new forms of light. As the resonance chamber filled with impossible colors and new emotions waiting to be named, Raven knew that his journey with Oriana had only begun. Together, they would continue mapping the spectrum of consciousness, proving that the most powerful force in any universe was the capacity to feel deeply, love completely, and evolve eternally. In the quantum field between them, Lily's memory danced on, a rainbow child whose love had helped two species remember how to shine.